Horror games themselves tend to do the whole spooky scary thing quite well, or so I should hope. It isn't the only genre to feature horrifying scenarios. I mean, don't get me wrong, series like Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, and Resident Evil are of high renown for a reason. Few others can pull off such terrifying yet memorable experiences so well. But, today I'd like to go over my favorite examples of horror in non-horror games. Moments that are either unsettling or insidious, but definitely unexpected. Which is all it really takes to qualify for this video. These are in no particular order, but they are gonna be, just based off of some of my personal favorite examples. I haven't played every game in existence, so if there are any moments that you could think of that would fit, but I didn't mention, feel free to leave a comment telling me about them, and also why I'm a big, dumb, stinky idiot. Also, spoiler warning for basically every game I'm going to be talking about, and if you don't want to be spoiled, then you know the drill. So without further ado, let's get started. For the most part, the original Halo is this fun military action sci-fi adventure. You're just shooting up aliens as the Master Chief. Provided that you aren't playing on legendary difficulty, the game never really poses too much of a challenge to you. As long as you play well, the adventure will mostly be a comfortable one. That is, until the mission 343, Guilty Spark. So usually, you encounter some enemies and the music is bumping, explosions are going off, plenty of gunfire from both sides, and then you're never too far from the next big fight. The times when Halo tends to get quiet are when all your current enemies are dead and you're moving on to the next encounter. But even then, you might hear Cortana talking in your ear, the engine of your Warthog, or maybe an NPC might say something. Here, however, you start to find wreckage and bodies, like some big fight took place before you ever got here.
Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squat's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an
Sarge,
order.
listen. What is that?
Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
I don't... There! Get out!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it! Sergeant, we're surrounded. Damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapons!
There's too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it.
Get back here, Marine! That's an order!
Unfortunately for myself, I already knew about the Flood by the time I ever got to this moment, but I still think this is a pretty fucking effective reveal of an enemy that is arguably more terrifying in concept than the Covenant. The Covenant want to complete the Great Journey, which sure involves firing the Halo Ring super weapons, which would eliminate all life in the galaxy. The Flood, however, exists to assimilate all other life forms into their hive mind, which, for the record, I think would be a much worse fate than being destroyed by a WMD of the galactic scale. Also, check this shit out. Fucking Marines and Covenant fighting and dying side by side against this common, horrible threat. It's just set dressing for the environment, but it speaks volumes. This is probably going to be a very unoriginal observation, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. So when you think about it, the Pokemon world's kind of fucked up. Like, have you read any of these Pokedex entries? Palossand. Palossand is known as the Beach Nightmare. It pulls its prey down into the sand by controlling the sand itself and then sucks out their souls. Pumpkaboo. When taking spirits into the afterlife, small Pumpkaboo prefer the spirits of children to those of adults. Kamala. It is born asleep, and it dies asleep. All its movements are apparently no more than the results of it tossing and turning in its dreams. Those are just a few of the more down-to-earth examples. Some of them are quite frankly fucking ridiculous, and they can't possibly be true, like Magcargo, which in some of its Pokedex entries is stated to have a body temperature of 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about double the temperature of the surface of the sun. You know, that thing that's over 90 million miles away that heats up our planet. If that were true, then nothing would be able to live as long as there were any Magcargo, assuming the Pokemon world operates with the same properties as the real world. Nevertheless, these are wild animals being captured, tamed, and battled against other creatures. Captured by young children, usually around the age of 10 to 15 years old, and sometimes even preschoolers? And this is just normal in this world. As if it weren't bad enough that little Timmy's cat can slash your fucking throat open, there are also ghosts. No, not ghost-type Pokemon, actual human ghosts. On a slightly unrelated note, do you remember Pokemon X and Y? I want to know, who decided that would be a good idea? I mean, nothing extreme happens, she just kind of shows up, does her thing, and as far as I'm aware, nobody in-game ever brings it up? X and Y are by no means the only games in the series with nightmare fuel. God, what is it with this series and dead people and Pokemon? You know, Lavender Town is the obvious example, and it definitely stands in stark contrast to the rest of the game. Like, what a fucking rude awakening that must have been. You spend all day raising and battling your Charmander against other Pokemon, and then you learn that, oh yeah, in fact, Pokemon can die. Sure, yours never die, but still. Personally, I'm more bothered by the awakening of the mascot legendaries in Generation 3. In Sapphire, Kyogre's power will swallow the land with the seas, and while that's kind of a scary prospect, I think the Ruby version of the timeline poses the much more horrifying scenario. Imagine this. You're a trainer on, let's say, Route 104. You're minding your own business. Maybe you're even in the middle of a battle. The earth begins to rumble. Not just any earthquake, we're talking like the mother of all earthquakes. And then things start to heat up. I'm talking like the sun just blinked about 50 million miles closer to the earth. Groudon is bringing an overwhelming heat to the world, essentially setting the earth on fire. You don't know what the fuck is happening or why, but life has suddenly taken just a huge turn for the catastrophic. This isn't just a threat to the Hoenn region, this is a threat to the entire world. And on top of that, just listen to this fucking music. Minecraft isn't exactly categorized as a horror game. Nevertheless, it has the capability to provide you some intense encounters. You're out mining. Maybe you find a new cave system. Of course, it's unlit, so you're gonna have some enemies to deal with while you make the area more safe. But these enemies don't fuck around. Even if you're wearing a full set of iron armor at full health on normal difficulty, a creeper can still kill you with one point-blank explosion. Creepers are damn near silent when walking, by the way. Skeletons can light your ass up from a range, and zombies will chase you once you're within range, seemingly forever. Spiders are, well, spiders. Ugh. And that's to say nothing of the things you can find in the Nether. You know, Minecraft's version of hell. Zombified pigmen. More fresh pigmen that want to fucking chop you in two. Flying tentacled beasts that shoot fireballs at you, which can also deactivate your Nether portal, leaving you stranded unless you can somehow reactivate it. Slimes that are made of magma, which can smother you for insane damage if just the right scenario occurs. Not only that, you can find fortresses in the Nether, which feature such amazing games and prizes such as more fire-spewing enemies, and wither skeletons, which inflict a debuff that weakens you and deals damage over time. Oh yeah, you know, lava, that stuff that you'll find it every now and then in the overworld. It destroys anything that gets dropped into it, and it can kill you in a couple seconds if, you know, you're not really geared up. That shit is everywhere here, and it flows much more quickly. But when you first spawn into a world, you have nothing. It's up to you to get geared up and build a shelter, and from there you have free reign to do whatever you want. Become a farmer, brew some potions, dive for treasure inside a shipwreck, you know, raid some villages, really whatever you want to do. You can go and do it. But you're never truly alone, even in single player. They will never be too far behind.
Death waits for the slightest lapse in concentration.
Do I really need to say anything for this? I mean, it's Dark Souls. The hopelessness and dread is basically the bread and butter of these games' stories. It all began with a world full of colorless deep fog, a land of gray crags, arch trees, and everlasting dragons. One day, fire sprung forth into the world, and with that fire came disparity, heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark. Within the flame, the souls of lords were found, and these beings rose up with the strength of lords and defeated the everlasting dragons. Thus began the Age of Fire. At some point during all of this, the furtive pygmy discovered something called the Dark Soul, and split it into fragments which would later be called humanity. Fragments of the Dark Soul, more specifically the darkness, exist in all humans. Lord Gwyn and his pantheon of lords feared the dark more than anything. The arrival of the dark means an end to the Age of Fire, or in other words, the Age of the Gods. Gwyn in his paranoia placed a ring of fire around the dark within mankind, thus the Dark Sign and the undead curse were born, and mankind's existence was tied to fire. And with that, the vicious cycle had begun. It would only be a matter of time until the first flame would go out for good. Essentially, it doesn't matter whether people try to eke out whatever hope or happiness they can in this cruel, unjust world. Undead are truly unable to die, just resurrecting over and over until their sanity leaves them and they go hollow. That already is just kind of a horrifying proposition. You'll never know the peace and finality of death, because some fucking boomer was worried that he might not always be in power, and made everything worse for everyone else. The first flame, as special as it is just fire, so it will go out eventually. When this starts to happen, an undead shall be chosen to rise to the occasion. They are tasked with linking the first flame, extending the Age of Fire. Failure to do that means the Age of the Dark will take hold of the world, which essentially means the end of everything. See, this system is all well and good, and to its credit, it has lasted for hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 cycles. Canonically, the chosen undead of Dark Souls 1 chose to link the flame, and indeterminate amount of time later, the bearer of the curse from Dark Souls 2 decides to do the same thing. In Dark Souls 3, the system has failed. Those with the strength to kindle the first flame are known as Lords of Cinder. You are not one of them. You are the Ashen One. known as an Unkindled, someone who had previously attempted but failed to become a Lord of Cinder. You have been awoken so that you may attempt to kindle the first flame once again. But why you? Couldn't they just resurrect the Lords of Cinder? Well, they did that. They have been resurrected. But they've either refused to do so, or they are so corrupted that they just can't do it anymore. So now the task falls to you, the Plan Z, the final last resort. Your goal is to find the Lords of Cinder so that you can become strong enough to link the first flame yourself. But looking at everything you encounter, is any of this worth saving? In the first game, you could reasonably assume that people could rebuild lost civilizations and return from the brink. And the second game shows us another point in time, long after Lordran has fallen. It tells us about the kingdom of Drangleic, and really just shows us how kingdoms rise and they fall, and that's just kinda how it goes. Dark Souls 3 shows us how that idea applies to more than just kingdoms. The whole system, the world, is on the brink of failure. Linking the first flame barely does anything to keep the dark at bay. In the first game, linking the first flame saw it exploding as it regains its power. Here, it barely has the strength to cover you, let alone everything. The other 3 endings to the game all arrive at essentially the same conclusion. You've gained the strength to link the flame. You've journeyed to the kiln where the flame is. You have defeated the embodiment, the personification of everyone who's ever linked the flame. You won. But the Age of Darkness is coming whether you link the flame or not. Linking it barely does anything. Despite everything we've been led to believe, once the Age of Dark sets in, it doesn't immediately spell the end of the world.
The first flame quickly fades. But one day, tiny flames will dance across the darkness. Like embers linked by Lord's Pass. Ashen One, hearest thou my voice still?
Hey, thanks for watching. Hope it was worth the wait, I sincerely do. This video took me a few weeks to put together, mainly because of just how many damn rewrites this whole thing went through. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more from me, consider subscribing and clicking the bell, or as it's more commonly known, the actual subscribe button. Patron-suggested videos will continue in November, so pretty soon by the time you're seeing this. Oh, speaking of Patreon, there's a link to my page in the description below. If you want to throw some support my way, every little bit helps. Your support is very, very much appreciated, but is by no means required. Thank you once again for watching. Have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you all next time.